Welcome to the Whole Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you become a fat burner, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey, everybody. It's Debbie. I'm here again to bring you someone new on the podcast today. And his name is the fabulous Thaddeus. He goes by Thaddeus, not fabulous, but I just think it's a good way to remember his name is Thaddeus. So he is one of the co-founders of the primalhacker.com website that you may have seen posts from. They have great blogs and tons of information on how you can hack your performance, your lifestyle, how to improve the aging process, how to lose weight, all of that stuff we talk about. So I found their website, thought what a great person to have on the show today to talk about ways we can improve our performance in life and our sport, and what kind of hacks we can do that don't cost a ton of money, right? So many things you hear about on other shows and websites and blogs, they cost so much money. Well, today, the ones we're going to talk about, what biohacks you can do to improve your performance, really don't cost anything. The number one item he mentioned to do, number one hack, is pretty surprising. So let's see what Thaddeus has to share with us. We'll put all the links in the show notes. Once again, please go to our Facebook page and ask us any questions, and I will get back to you myself. The Whole Athlete Podcast page. Also, you can find me on Instagram, The Holistic Athlete. So I want to hear from you because I'm planning the next year, 2019 podcast recordings and interviews. And I want to make sure we're offering you the information that you're looking for to help improve your training, your racing, the aging process, reducing stress, gut health, digestion, everything that we need to do as we get older to work our best in triathlons or endurance sports. So I know I'm on this journey to continue to learn more, and I just don't stop. I'm trying to get into working with DNA Fit, learning about the genetics and performance and burning fat and how it can really optimize our health as we age up. So as I get older, I want to get younger and be able to feel great and happy and enjoy every day. So let's see what hacks we can learn from Thaddeus today, again, from primalhacker.com. So let's bring him on the show and learn something new. Thanks for coming on and sharing your biohacking knowledge with us today.
Absolutely, Debbie. Good to be here.
So I have learned about biohacking over the years is once I started listening to podcasts, and biohacking, I'm learning just recently that not many people know what biohacking is. And you started learning more about bulletproof, a certification course, and got into bulletproof. Dave Asprey, kind of the man, kind of seems to be behind the biohacking. So talk about what brought you to creating this Primal Hacker business, and your basically share what your passion is and what your purpose is and how you're creating impact.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been in the biohacking space for, 10 years or so. So quite a while. And I did originally get interested in the space through people like Ben Greenfield and Dave Asprey from Bulletproof. And then I took the opportunity in 2015 to go study with Dave Asprey in the first Bulletproof Coaches training program. So I got to meet Dave and train with him and his team for a number of years, learn quite a lot about coaching and about biohacking, and do a much deeper dive. And I have personally always been a performance athlete since high school, and got into triathlons and marathons and all sorts of things. And I was always looking for faster recovery and then better performance, but I also wanted to look really good and live a really long time. So biohacking promised all of those things. And so I wanted to force myself to do a really deep dive to study the science and not just hear the biohacks, try them out. I wanted to know why they work and how they work, so maybe I could develop my own and help other people. So that's kind of why I got into it. You know, I had my own personal issues that I was trying to solve. And then as I learned more, I really thought, hey, there's a great way that I can A, do a deep dive, and B, help more people. So I founded my business based on this kind of marrying of biohacking and ancestral practices. So I really geek out around like, how do I learn what my ancestors did and what makes an optimally healthy human, and what's all the latest science telling us, and how do we marry those two things to overcome a modern kind of indoor lifestyle that most people lead.
Yeah, that's great. That's why I think it's so important to, but we actually are going through with Ben Greenfield, the Keon Coach program I'm involved in right now. It's a beta test program that, as I started years ago in this and got into his Superhuman Coach program that we did in 2011, I think. And then we did a conference, and now its new thing is Keon Coaching. So anyways, just that similar interest in learning more, but also why, understanding why, why is having a cold shower beneficial for me? Why should I do the infrared sauna? Why should I, go for a walk with my bare feet? I think there's so much out there, and, the word biohacking, as I said earlier, a lot of people don't know what it is. And I just was talking to my sister on my way home today, and she's like, I go, do you know what biohacking is? And she did not. And I know I organized a health fair earlier this year at my fitness studio, and I called it the Biohacking Self-Care Health Fair, and no one knew what it was. When biohacking, where are you guys? You guys all under a rock? So I know our podcast listeners probably know what biohacking is. If you guys, we all started listening to Dave Asprey and Ben Greenfield, as you said, because they kind of were the beginners of podcasts and into this biohacking world. So what is your definition of biohacking?
Yeah, absolutely. And that term is some that, not a lot of people are familiar with, but most people are familiar with the names like Ben Greenfield and Dave Asprey and Bulletproof. They just don't always understand the whole term biohacking. And what it really means to me is how I am able to change the internal environment, so the environment inside of myself, and the environment around me. So how do I adapt my light, my temperature, everything around my space to optimize my own biology. So it's really taking control of my biology and understanding how the body works so that I can adapt the environment both inside myself and around myself to optimize my cells so that everything I do, I show up better, I feel better, and I perform better because of all those things.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of what I'm striving to do too, is how to feel better, move better, feel better, as well as, of course, everyone wants to look better naked, but you want to look good. And now as I get older, it's all about, I want to improve my performance as well as improve the aging process and reverse it, not get older, but, feel better as I get older. Not the common thing. Everyone just thinks, I can't do this. I feel crappy just because I'm getting older, but there's so much we can do to take control. And as you probably say, hack your lifestyle or things that you can do to improve your aging process. So what is that? The primal hacker, the primal hacking, is that same as biohacking, or do you specialize it, different type of hacking?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm in my mid 40s, and I actually, like, through this process of learning what I've learned, I'm in better shape and I feel better now than I was in my 20s. Mm-hmm. So absolutely, as you get older, you can improve in so many ways. And I think that's what's so cool about what it is we do and what we learn. And so the primal hacking really was this convergence of looking at what Dave does, and Bulletproof was very high tech and cutting edge and latest science. And what Ben does, he does a lot of the gadgets and everything else. And he also does these ancient practices of getting cold and grounding and getting outside and with as few clothes on as possible, if you've watched some of his videos. And what I also was interested in was paleo and primal, and I studied with Mark Sisson. And so I wanted to figure out how people lived optimally from an ancestral standpoint, understanding that in today's modern environment, if you just go live like a caveman did way back when, you will not be optimally healthy. There's too many things going on around us for that to work nowadays. So I really wanted to merge this ancestral health and biohacking principles so that let's do what our ancestors did to create optimal health, And when we can't, when we live this indoor lifestyle, when we're exposed to blue light at night or microwave radiation, how do we adapt ourselves to that environment using technology and biohacks so that we can create this more ancestral environment our body is designed to use?
Yeah, and that's what I love learning about and sharing with our listeners and my own clients that I have in my fitness studio, that they get to hear my new things all the time, because not everyone, as I said, listens to podcasts, but I think there's so much valuable information out there that could help improve our age and our new journey going on. As we get older, I want to enjoy new things and travel more and be outside more, because we're not having to work so much and have that chronic stress that we end up living with each day. So let's talk about your favorite ways to help people improve the aging process. And maybe it's the same list or different if they're trying to get faster, stronger in a triathlon or marathon or cycling endurance type of event as they get older.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I'm sure you have other guests that talked about this, but physiology tends to peak around your 30s or so, but there's so many things you can do to just improve yourself. So personally, from a longevity standpoint, the number one thing that I continue to talk about, and I think is the thing most people in the entire world, no matter where you are, have access to and should be doing, is getting natural sunlight.
Yes.
And most people don't think about that as either a biohack or a performance enhancing drug. But in reality, we as humans are designed, just like all animals and plants, to live under the sun. So if you were to think about taking a tarp and throwing it over an orange tree, what's going to happen to that orange tree? The oranges will never grow. The tree will probably die because it needs that information that it gets and really nutrition from sunlight. And humans designed to live under the sun that lights our world are no different. And so the sun really does code in our eyes and our body for performance enhancement, longevity. And what it's doing is providing both information. So if you think about wireless technology and Wi-Fi and cell signals, I'm sending this information wirelessly through the air to another device that picks it up. The sun and the human body are also wireless devices and receivers, and we can wirelessly obtain information from the sun at a quantum level. We can't even tell it's going on, but our body and our brain understands how to use it and keep us optimally healthy. So I would say that's my number one, is like morning sunshine helps build melatonin that you're going to release at night that helps you sleep, that your body's master anti-cancer hormone. It sets your body's circadian rhythm for the day. Circadian rhythm and its impact on human health was the winner of the Nobel Prize last year, because it's such a big impact on human health. And the sun, the morning sunlight, is what sets all of those things in motion. So I think, the number one thing for anti-aging would be sunlight.
Yeah. And how much does that cost?
Yeah, exactly. That is 100% free. Anybody can take advantage of morning sunlight. If you work a third shift job or you're working when the sun is rising, you can always get sunset, which is not quite as beneficial, but has very similar benefits to sunrise. Mm-hmm. Now, if you can't do that, you can try to get out some other time during the day just to get that benefit. It's very important. Everyone has access to the sun, and it's completely free.
Yeah. And think that's a big thing, as you read all these blogs and you listen to the podcasts, and you have to be a billionaire to get all this equipment and these biohacks. Like I was looking at the Nest, to buy the Nest, the body scanner. It costs so much money a month, but if I wanted to buy it, it was $17,000. And if you want to do cryotherapy and get infrared sauna and get, all these head devices and all this stuff, I think a lot of the people just like, oh, no way I can do any of that. But
yeah,
stuff is almost more effective than a lot of the different toys.
Exactly. And that's really interesting. I just had a conversation today. So I was at the gym just doing a couple sets of deadlifts for literally 10 minutes so I could get in and use a UVA and the sauna that they've got. And they have a U.S. cryotherapy center there. And I think what most people, when they get into biohacking, they think, oh, I wish I knew how expensive it was going to be. And when it really comes down to it, all these biohacks are trying to stimulate things that we get from nature that we're missing in a modern environment. So here I am living in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and people are going into the cryotherapy, and a guy that knows me there asked, hey, are you using the cryotherapy here? And I said, I just walk outside. It's a lot cheaper. And It was 8 degrees yesterday morning, and it was 15 degrees this morning. And I spent as much time outside without a shirt on, without shoes on. Then I'll put my feet in some shoes. But that's my cryotherapy. I walk out the door. Cryotherapy and getting cold has so many benefits. It increases VO2 max. It decreases inflammation. It increases longevity and telomere length. So helps us aging, and it helps us reduce all this damage we do in endurance sports. And people want those benefits. So they're willing to pay $1,000 or more a year to use these cryotherapy machines in a northern climate when literally all you have to do is get your skin cold by walking outside.
So that's probably number 2 on your list then, cold. Being number 1 was getting outside, getting that morning sunshine, going for those nature walks. So is number 2 going to be get cold, shiver?
Absolutely.
Ice bath?
Yep. So there's a whole procedure for cold adaptation that's super helpful, which, you start out with just plunging your face into some cold water and holding your breath as long as you can. You can fill up a sink with just tap water. You could put ice in it if you want. And you do that for as long as you can stand it over and over. And once you kind of graduate from that, you can do cold baths and cold showers, and then eventually ice baths and then shiver walks. So shivering would be the most beneficial thing when you're cold, and shivering has been shown to deplete muscle glycogen, just like a super intense workout will. So you can actually deplete glycogen without working out, which is huge, which then you're going to get your bumps in human growth hormone and inflammation reduction and everything that comes with that.
That's good, because I was trying to research that, because I kept hearing that we should shiver a few times a day, and I didn't get the real in-depth why. Because I know I keep learning about cryotherapy, of course, and doing the cold thermogenesis, but the shivering just seems a lot easier to do.
Yeah, exactly. So your body, by shivering, is creating heat through your mitochondria rather than just energy. And when it does that, it's depleting muscle glycogen. Now, people with more body fat are not necessarily going to shiver, even though they are losing fat. So cold can do lipolysis. It can kill fat cells, which is that kind of cold sculpting you hear about. Mm-hmm. You can do the same thing in cold water, of course, and it's free. And then you will find the people with much less body fat, the lower body fat endurance athletes, will shiver much, much faster. But what we're doing at the same time, whether you have more body fat or less, is creating brown adipose tissue, the brown fat, which is more metabolically active and much healthier to have.
Yeah, that's great information, because I think, as I was saying before, I like to understand everything. It makes you probably what you do in your blog. It's like, all right, what is this supposed to do and how does it work, and dive into that research, figure out the benefits, and be able to explain why should you go into this cold plunge pool for 3 minutes and freeze to death and work on your breathing. What is the benefit? So being able to explain that's a better sell to people to do it too.
Well, and exactly. And frankly, from a performance standpoint, the US military uses cold thermogenesis and cold training, specifically the Navy SEALs. Mm-hmm. But what they're finding is once you cold adapt, if you just get in cold water and try to perform sport, you're going to find yourself, moving much slower, harder to make the movements, your muscles cramp up. But if you cold adapt, you then in cold environments can perform far better than other athletes. The same is true in hot environments. So if you think about going from, normal room temperature to try to performing in extremely hot and humid environments, it can be challenging on your body, on your metabolism, and on your cardio when you're trying to perform there. And cold adaptation and cold therapy actually helps you in both a cold and a hot environment when you perform.
So people training for an Ironman Hawaii, that was just in October, it's usually hot, humid there, and a lot of people have to train wherever they're from for those conditions, and it's never quite as humid in a lot of cities around the country. So you have to prep for that hot weather.
Exactly. Now, you can also use sauna, which is another one of the hacks that I like to use. But I would say like cold therapy and hot therapy are the two critical things to use. So sauna use, depending on whether you have one easily accessible, can be harder or less hard for some people to get into. But it does increase cardiovascular health. It increases your cardio engine. So your time to exercise to exhaustion actually increases quite a bit. It lowers your heart rate. So as you're performing exercise or competing, the lower the heart rate, the better. The increased time to exhaustion, you want that to go way up, and you want your cardio output to go way up. And you actually get used to that hot environment. It's a stressor that you get used to over time. Mm-hmm. And again, just like cold environments help you deal with heat, very hot environments like the sauna actually help you deal with cold as well.
So that's number 3. So we've got sun, cold, and hot. So doing an infrared sauna, any tips on that? So like I use Sunlight brand. I like how they have the 3 different wavelengths. And I know there's clear light, some ones that are, more just the far infrared. What's your research and philosophy on the heat?
Absolutely. I used to have a Sunlight sauna, and then I know quite a few people with the clear light sauna. And what I found with infrared sauna, it's very challenging to get it hot enough. So I know Ben, if you look at his website, he's got a big post on how to hack your sauna to make it hotter. And he does that for a really specific reason. So the infrared wavelengths are very healing. They reduce inflammation. They build collagen. They do all these other really great things. What they don't do well is adapt you to heat stress and create heat shock proteins unless you're getting uncomfortably hot. So often what I would find in the infrared saunas is I could stay in there for hours. But when I'm in a traditional sauna that gets 160 to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, it's very uncomfortable to stay in there for more than 20 to 30 minutes. And that stress from minute 25 to 30 is actually what's creating the majority of the benefit from heat and the heat shock proteins that are getting built. So at least all the research that I've seen really require you to be very uncomfortably hot to receive the sauna benefits that I've studied. Infrared saunas have quite a few additional benefits, but they don't necessarily get you hot enough for the heat shock protein, VO2 max increase, and some of these other things that can be provided by that super hot regular sauna. Again, you can hack your sauna to make it hotter though.
So you can, for detoxification benefits, why a lot of people I think get the infrared saunas are the toxins, to release toxins out of your fat cells. But you get even more benefits, you're saying, if you even go higher heat and be able to stay in there and get the homogeneous effect of having that healthy stress amount to your body to respond to and deal with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, the infrared penetrate deeper into your cells, so it kind of heats you from the inside and releases toxins much more easily than a traditional sauna, where the traditional sauna just does the heat shock and heat stress better than an infrared. So they have they both have benefits for sure.
Okay, so the heat shock proteins are from just a basic sauna that's really hot, and then the infrared is going to be more the toxins and the other benefits.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So what else do you have for us to improve our performance? Maybe it's for endurance events, racing, training workouts, other tips in that area?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll do one more actual technology that has helped me. So over the last summer, I trained from, basically I was running marathons, triathlons, and took about a 5 to 6 year break where I just literally gave up running and biking completely and was just doing some weight training and walking mostly. And I decided to do a Spartan race with a friend of mine, and then somehow got talked into racing the Spartan World Championship because I was on a podcast with Ben Greenfield and Mike Bledsoe and a guy from Neurohacker, and everyone was running the Spartan race but me, and it was the World Championship at Tahoe. So I thought, all right, I better run this. So I had to train with literally 3 weeks to the race. I started my training. So that was ended up being a really, really long race. And my training consisted of packing everything in that I could with extreme recovery so that I could get out and work out again. And so there, I basically had 2 tools that were really helpful. So other than the ways that I structured my workouts, the tools were having photobiomodulation, so red light therapy. So I've tested a ton of different red lights.
I know Ben keeps talking about the Jovi. Is that what that is?
Yeah, it's a Juve. So, yep. So Joovv is what Ben's got. Everyone's seen his pictures with shining it on his balls, of course. And so I do have a Joovv, and I've got a Jemba red light, and then I've got a Sauna Space sauna with red light in it, and I've got a couple other red light therapy devices. But what I found is immediately before exercise, it increases energy. And so you can basically ramp yourself up using the red light and have additional energy. After exercise, it reduces inflammation, rebuilds collagen, and helps heal injuries much, much quicker. The one study that I was able to find with sports teams used basketball players, and it reduced the time from them sitting on the bench with an injury to getting back into playing by 50%, so 50%. So that's a huge increase in getting and recovering from a workout or from an injury. So I love to use red light both before and after a workout whenever possible. And then the other thing that I ended up experimenting with for both recovery and muscle gain, which you cannot use if you're a professional athlete because they are banned by WADA, but SARMs, so Selective Androgen Receptor Modulators. They're basically designer peptides, so designer proteins that act on the androgen receptors in your body. So like a steroid acts on an androgen receptor, but it stimulates all the androgen receptors, a steroid would. And some of them you don't want turned on, and some you might want turned on. So you want the ones turned on that benefit you for fat loss, muscle gain, and recovery, but not the ones that do the negative things with steroids. And that's what these designer proteins do. So I tried some of these designer proteins. I wrote a really big blog post about what they are, how they affected me, what my gains were, and I did DEXA scan before and after for bone density, muscle, fat, and then I looked at my Spartan results during using that for my training.
Fun. So do you get to a certain point that you get all this stuff sent to you and test out and trying new things all the time? Toys?
Yeah, I mean, once you achieve a certain level within a niche, things get sent to you. I know there's some of us in the space where we get a lot of the neat toys and things to try out, and supplements. So we'll get tons of bottles of supplements, and I try to avoid most supplements these days if I can. So I don't always get to try those out, but we do get lots of things sent to us to try out and to play around with, which can be really fun.
Yeah. Okay. So what about exercising? I know we talk a lot of last few years about minimalist training and less is more instead of doing high volume training for triathlons or trail running, marathoning. What is your take on any hacks to get improved performance by training less?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you are going to run extreme long distances at really fast pace, you've got to train for that. But there are many things that at least I have personally found to get around and shortcut some of those. Like the Spartan World Championship last year, if I tracked it on my ring, ended up being 19 miles with all the obstacles. And I hadn't run more than 2 miles for the previous 6 years. So, and for me to have run that distance without stopping, I thought was very impressive. So what I have found is high intensity interval training. I'm sure you've heard it over and over, but the cardio benefits from that are so massive just doing it 2 to 3 times a week. You can do it 1 time a week, but what I did is 3 sessions a week of HIIT with battle ropes or sprints. So I really try to focus on hill sprints. So running up to the top of a hill, walking down, running up to the top and down. So that hill sprint made me very strong in the mountains in California, but it also makes me very, very fast and hard to beat on hills if you train on hills. Everybody hates hills, but if you can force yourself to be a hill runner, you can really put distance between yourself when you get into that situation. So I found 2 things, like the HIIT with the hill sprints, and then training with kettlebells, because what I could do is very explosive movements along with some strength movements, and I could do them every single day for a very short period of time to gain enough strength and explosiveness for my training without overtraining.
Yeah. I think that's a big word, under recovery or overtraining, that a lot of athletes do always more, think more is better, do extra workout even if they feel poor and tired and fatigued. But I think the big thing coming out is what I keep talking about lately, as well as what I heard at Ironman Hawaii this year, that a lot of companies are focusing on the recovery repair part of the training cycle. So I think that's a big part.
Yeah, and that's what most people forget is like your gains come in your recovery, your rest, and your sleep. They don't come when you're killing yourself. That's where you break yourself down when you're out training. And you've got to do that to a point where you break yourself down enough that you can recover quickly from that and rebuild more than what you had before. So you want to rebuild your cardio engine bigger than it was. You want to have more muscle to do what you want to do and not just continuously break yourself down, because everything that I've learned is you go really, really hard, lock in some gains, recover really, really hard, so that I would say you spend the majority of your week at peak performance levels, not at levels where you feel broken down and you still need to rest more. So I just found personally that very intense sessions once or twice a week, with all my other sessions being really easy, allowed me way more recovery. And then of course, optimizing my sleep was really the biggest thing that I found helped.
A couple questions there. One, do you use a heart rate monitor? Because I know a lot of people that do interval training don't go hard enough, so you don't really get the benefit. They end up kind of staying, we use my zone in my fitness studio. A lot of people are, blue or yellow zone. They're just not getting to that red zone to really get that 90% heart rate effort and then recovery again to know when to start the next one.
Yeah, I think that's important for many people starting out. And so I did use a polar heart rate monitor on a chest strap, and I did hit training for about 6 months using that to understand where I needed to be in that level. And so what I would do is two things. I would use it to make sure I didn't go over a certain level in my long runs or long bike rides, so that I stayed really low and built my cardio engine slowly at a slower pace. But understanding how I felt during that HIIT session to get my heart rate where it needed to be allowed me to use the device for long enough that I knew what I needed to do and how I needed to feel, so I didn't need to use it afterwards. I think people that have never used one, they need to use it initially to get the feel and to know how their body responds, and then you can kind of do away with some of those things.
I just did a podcast the other day with Garmin about how to use maximize the use of the Garmin watch, because there's so many apps and stuff you can put on there. But just if we can, set the limit so you know how hard to go in the recovery, but also the days, as you're saying, HIIT training, as most of us know now, that should be 2-3 times a week, not back-to-back day, and doing overtraining that way. So it's nice to be able to set that zone, say if you're doing math training, that we're not going over the 180 minus your age, max aerobic function heart rate, and stay below that. Because I think so many people, when they do that hard workout, the next day or 2 days should be down low heart rate, and being careful that you don't go over that, because that, as you said, recovery is a huge part of where you get the most gains.
Yes. And I'll give one more piece of advice that's been absolutely game-changing for me in recovery, and that is wearing blue light blocking glasses at night and ensuring that I protect not just my eyes, but my whole body from blue light after sunset. So, blue light basically will stop the melatonin production in our body, and melatonin is what gives us that recovery during sleep. And we do not want to be losing our melatonin if we want the best and most optimal recovery we can get. And so blocking that blue light after dark, because humans throughout all of history have never been able to see blue light after dark. We've seen moonlight and firelight, and none of those reduce melatonin, where LED, compact fluorescent, your phone, your devices, your iPads, all those will stop and have been proven to stop your melatonin, after dark. So covering your skin, which also has blue light sensors in it, as well as your eyes, which sense blue light, it was most critical for me to get better sleep, and then to actually wake up feeling refreshed, where I would go to sleep before and sleep for 8 hours and wake up, feel like I hadn't even gone to sleep yet. And that was almost certainly because I was losing the majority of my melatonin at night from being exposed to too much light. I've
been wearing my Swannies. I should have them on right now, because suddenly we're recording this in November and it's already getting dark out at 4:38 in the afternoon. But it is frustrating to me is, I'm sure you feel this way when you work with people or have family members that have all these sleep problems and health issues, and there's just all these simple things. If I bought my whole family the blue blocking glasses one Christmas, and I don't think anyone's worn them, but my husband and I, it's so important because everyone's on their iPads, on their computers, watching TV and having it so close to bedtime. Then they go to bed and they wake up and have all these sleep issues. So that's one of my big areas, what I call the holistic method, that I coach people on the sleep area. So Swanee's I've used, and we've interviewed them as well. But the other question is with the sleep, I know a big product out there that everyone's talking about, and I just ordered 2 of them for ourselves. Aura Ring. Are you using that at all?
Yes. So I was given an Aura Ring last year to try out, and I used it for an experiment that I was doing with a continuous glucose monitor implanted in my arm. And I liked it so much that I ordered, that was the original style. So I liked it enough that I ordered my own original, or the new version versus the original that they had given me. And I use it every single day to look at my sleep and to look at what affects my sleep. And I was really, really surprised, because deep sleep is where we get a lot of this benefit of our sleep. And deep sleep, I'm noticing, should be about an hour and a half for most humans. I'm getting 10 minutes of deep sleep. And I've got everything like super dialed in for sleep and light. And what I personally found is if I eat dinner within 2 hours to 3 hours of bedtime, my deep sleep will be in the gutter. If I eat dinner 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours before I go to bed, my deep sleep is an hour to an hour and a half. It's solely for me related to when I eat before bed. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's one of those things for recovery that most people probably wouldn't think about. Yeah. Like, what affects you the most? And for me, what affects me the most in recovering during sleep is when I eat, which is crazy.
Have you done the genetic testing at all? Use 23andMe or ancestral DNA?
Yeah. I used so I use 23andMe, and so I use it for specific things. There's so much data there. Yeah. What types of things are you finding are really useful for people with that data?
That's my new thing I'm diving into, and I just got Dr. Ben Lynch's book, The Dirty Genes, and there's a company that's out of London called DNA Fit that I just ordered their kit, and I'm going to do their coaching program next when I finish Ben's Keon coaching. And I'm just interested in it because I did 23andMe, I did a few years ago, and I did this other program, REVEL, my client's involved in, and I started looking at it going, the deep sleep, it had on there how much deep sleep you get in your coffee metabolizer and some other areas. But I've had different genetic testing done. I feel it's an important part of coaching people and really personalizing coaching for clients with nutritional therapy that I do, but then take their genetic testing and find out, about their caffeine, about their deep sleep, and then going into nutrition. I just think it's kind of the new wave of what we can do with people and really biohack their health with all this data we can get. But it is such new information, and more comes out with it.
For sure. And it's super neat to see how we can personalize people's health plans and workout plans. You can look through different genetic SNPs and figure out if you function better off high fat or low fat. And if you function better based on high intensity exercise or slow and steady cardio, all those things can kind of be buried in the traits that you're showing during that testing, which is really, really neat.
Yeah, I did a 3-part blog on my website, debbiepotts.net, about how I took my results from Viome, which is your gut biome testing, and find out what foods are good for it. That we're actually interviewing them coming up soon. And then my 23andMe, you can upload the raw data that you can look on your 23andMe for free onto another website and pull out all this information that looks like foreign language. So that's why getting this Dirty Genes book and to go into a little more in the DNA Fit program, that they have lots of information, but there's so much information that you can get from that raw data to find out your detoxification ability. And also, as you mentioned, fat, like I've been into low carb, high fat for a long time and feel great when I have more fat and protein, but I have the gene that Ben Greenfield was talking about too with us about not being able to process a lot of saturated fats, but I'm also prone to type 2 diabetic. So I need a higher fat, low carb diet, but I can't do all my fats so heavy into saturated fats. So I need more mixture and have like flaxseed oil and avocado oil and mix it up a little bit. But that's why I think it's so essential to get that information out to know, okay, I know keto works good for some people, but I'm more low carb, high fat, and sometimes keto, but what type of fats are good for me? And is it working for me? Am I losing weight? Am I getting healthier? So I think it will be beneficial for people to look at.
Yeah, I think that's the ApoE4 genetic SNP that you've got. And so that's something that I think is really fascinating about these DNA tests is our environment and some of the things that we do to ourselves can change our gene expressions.
Yeah.
So even if you like are ApoE4 right now, that's the gene polymorphism that you're expressing, that doesn't mean that that's not actually changeable based on your environment. So you may, and I think people will show soon as they retake these tests that you can change those gene expressions. So you may say like, oh my gosh, I can't eat any saturated fat. And you make a few changes and change your status of what your DNA is producing, and you will no longer have that polymorphism come out. So I think some of these things with personalized medicine, using these is so fascinating with what you can do. But the real thing is like, how do we change the genes that we're expressing based on what we do in our environment?
Yeah, and that's what Dirty Genes book was explaining. That's just first part getting into is, and you hear a lot of podcasts been out last couple of years about that. But I think it's just so interesting to put all this together and really figure out how can you optimize your health as a bio individual, and what foods does your gut need to eat to be at their best behavior and maximize your performance. So I think all this information is great, and you can make it, as you said, affordable by getting out in the sun, having, cold thermogenesis session, or shivering a few times a day in hot infrared sauna if you can. I know a lot of gyms have it, and yoga studios. I know someone has a hot yoga and then they have an infrared that they can go in afterwards. So I think it's getting a little bit easier to do if you don't have a big, huge budget, like some of these sound like. And like the HIIT training, that was a great tip too. Everyone can add in doing that 2 to 3 times a week, doing more kettlebell complex exercise sets and hill repeats you can do outside easily. But I'm a big believer for years of heart rate monitoring. So I see a lot of people just don't know how hard to go. As you're saying, it's good to do in the beginning. So I would suggest people use heart rate monitor when they're first training to know how hard, like a Tabata timer, to Tabata set. So many people don't even really get the benefit because they're just like that's not Tabata. Tabata's, he designed it for you to be at this level way up here. So great information though. What else do you have for it coming up on the next year and the new year? Anything you're working on now that you want to share, and where to send people to learn more about your Primal Hacking service?
Yeah, of course. So we are primalhacker.com. We're predominantly a blog where we give away free information on all these things that we learn in these niche areas and share with people how to implement them in their own lives. Most people obviously want to, look at the biohacking space and they see all this expensive tech. And what we're trying to do is break it down, make it simpler, and find ways you can incorporate it into your busy working life or your busy training life so that you can still maintain optimal health. So that's what we do on our blog. Mm-hmm. And what we've got is we are hosting a retreat in February of this year where we're doing all things cold and hot. So it's called the Fire and Ice Retreat. We're going to have a Wim Hof instructor teaching people the Wim Hof method. And then we're going to be doing cold exposure and hot exposure and then contrasting between the two. So we're going to be taking people through all the ways to cold adapt in a winter environment. It's going to be in the North Woods of Minnesota. So it will be in February and it will be cold. But we do have saunas on site. So we've got barrel sauna, we've got sauna space, and we've got, red lights, all sorts of other devices people can try out for biohacking, hyperbaric oxygen. So lots and lots of cool things. Some biohackers from around the world. We've got people from Australia coming out and people from the West Coast that'll be helping us instruct. So I think we've got that I think will be really exciting. And we'll post a ton of things on our Instagram at Primal Hacker throughout that entire retreat, from the food to everything. So our chef for that retreat happens to be Dave Asprey's old private chef. So he's got all the biohacked food you could possibly imagine. And that's just going to be a lot of fun. So we've got that coming up. And then we will do what we always do, which is continue to do a deep dive into overcoming this modern environment and how to stay optimally healthy, from hacking the light to the microwave radiation to cell phone safety and everything above and beyond that. And so we do also offer some products like radiation shielded headphones or air tube headphones, things like that we find we can't find ourselves, or the quality is really bad. We come up with some of our own products, but really look for us to help share our knowledge on maintaining optimal health in an indoor environment. And all that's free on our Instagram and our primalhacker.com blog page.
Nice. Yeah, it's pretty impressive. What's the date for the retreat? Do you know in February, the dates?
Yep, it's right in between the Super Bowl and Valentine's Day. So it is the 7th to the 10th of February. It is in Pequot Lakes, Minnesota, which is just north of the Twin Cities. And we've got only 3 open spots left. So it filled up pretty quickly, but it's at a luxury lake home. So you basically get a private bedroom and bathroom. It's beautiful. We just had Sachin Patel, one of the functional medicine doctors out there, as well as Ben House, Dr. Ben House and Dr. Mike T. Nelson. And everybody remarks at how big and spacious and beautiful the place is. So if anyone wants to join us, you can check it out. On our Instagram page, you'll see all these links to that retreat if you want to either just look at photos. It's great. Yeah, we'd love to have you out. So we've got some great discount codes. So let us know if you're interested, and we'll hook you up. Yeah,
I scream in the cold though. I'm kind of I like shivering's okay, but just Brad Kearns, we were talking about his cold plunge pool and his freezer that he does, and he's doing 6 minutes. I'm like, no. Can't do it. But shivering I can do, or run out in the snow and then jump into a sauna I can do, but that'd be a good challenge.
Yep, those are a lot easier. I think those freezer cold thermogenesis ponds are great. So you take an old chest freezer and fill it with water and keep it really cold. And believe me, like it's I have one of those as well, and it is way easier. Like my kids, I have a 7 and a 9-year-old, and they do it, and it just takes a little bit of seeing someone else do it, understanding how to do the breathing, and you can stay in there for 10 or 15 minutes, and it's really not that bad. But the deal is getting cold adapted is the part, and it takes about 2 weeks. Once you do that, it becomes really easy.
Yeah. Yeah, I got to try it. So thank you so much. Great information. We'll have to have you come on the show again to give us updates of new things that we can do to improve our performance, because I'm all about teaching people how to burn fat, optimize their health, and improve performance from the inside out. So thank you for sharing the similar journey and all your biohacking methods, and more information on the primalhacker.com. We'll put everything in the show notes so you guys can learn more and follow their blog, because it's filled with information, and social media. But thank you for coming out today.
Great. Thanks, Debbie. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for listening to the Whole Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at wholeathletepodcast.com. You can help us continue and grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and see you next time.